Welcome back. Mark Bertoli joining us on the show from Abbott Wealth Management on this Wednesday. Welcome back to the show.
A nice sunny Wednesday.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Oh, it's fantastic.
The colors are more beautiful when you have the sun on them, so it's just
like
gorgeous.
they're plugged in.
That's right, like they're plugged in. Exactly. You had a discussion this morning with somebody by the name of Jonathan Popper. He's been investing for a long time.
Yes, he's with Manulife Investments and part of a team in Canada that has a history of being with just stellar performance over time. And it's interesting to sit back and listen and talk about the process a little bit. And you know, some things that came about, you know, right away he always gets questions, well, what are the markets doing, right? And today he really talked about their process. And we've talked about that in good markets and bad. It's the process, not chasing returns and things like that. So, you know, he looked at a few things and you know, he talked about owning companies where there's a barrier to entry. So in that regard, he compared a restaurant, a mom and pa hamburger joint, to CN Rail. Well, you're not going to be able to go across Canada and buy up properties to build a railway or blast your way through the Fraser Canyon by a salmon-bearing stream. So you want to own companies with a competitive advantage, with a barrier to entry. And then other things he looked at, and you know, it's really common sense, but pricing power. Right now, a lot of our oil companies are hurting because the world price of oil is at $47 a barrel. However, Coca-Cola can set the price of their product. So you've got two different extremes there. So, you know, what he really brings and what he really demonstrated today was that long-term common sense really shines. And, you know, he talked about looking at a company and its management, making sure that the management is consistent, it's long-term, what is their process. You know, if a company has been around, you know, there's a lot of companies in Canada that are older than Canada itself. And they've been through 2 world wars, they've been through 9/11, they've been through 2008 and survived. So there's a reason for that. So it was a really interesting meeting. And he's what's called a value manager. So he looks at the earnings of companies, like I said, how hard they are to compete with, and uses a really common sense look at investing. Does a lot of his decisions are based on a calculator. Right, rather than the emotion of the market.
Which is good, which is smart.
Right.
Any other topics you want to talk about before we get to our question of the week?
No, actually, you know, because the question of the week kind of relates back to the type of manager that he is. And I always make reference to the medical profession, and I say, you know, if I needed a cardiologist and I could research who was the best in Canada, right, and I could look over the last 10 years, that's, you know, with Jonathan and his team, they hold those credentials. In the investment world, you can do that, right? So it's makes a big difference, for sure.
Do we need to hit that question of the week at all?
Sure.
Then, or?
Yeah, well, we could, yeah.
Okay, if we have it.
I think there's well, the question of the week is, can you explain the difference between a value and growth style of investing, right? And a lot of people hear the terms, but they don't understand that. So, for instance, Jonathan Popper is a value investor. So he will look for opportunities, he will look at companies through a microscope, and he will buy them if the price is right, hoping that they're going to do well and the price will go back up. So in days when we have volatility and 300-400 point drops in the market, he knows his companies very well, and he will probably deploy that cash at that time. The difference with a growth manager is a growth manager is looking for a company that's going to take off. So, for instance, the IPO of Facebook, or, you know, I think back one that was epic was RIM. Research in Motion. When the BlackBerry came out, you know, it had all these neat new gadgets that no one had seen before, and people who got in early and rode that growth story did very well, right? But that's more speculating that it's going to do well versus using a calculator and buying an established company that is very profitable. There's your two different styles.
Absolutely. Excellent. All right. Good to know. Thank you very much for being here today.
Oh, thank you.
Good information there. If you have any questions for Mark, AbbottWealth.com as well. The phone number is on the screen. When we come back, we'll be introducing you to a local award-winning author. Stay with us.